In January of 2021, I had a near-death experience. That morning, I had gotten up just like every other morning, and I was doing my morning workout with my children around my feet, and the room started to spin. So I got down on all fours and realized this was going to go south very quickly. I rolled onto my back, and my daughter had crawled onto my chest, and I realized that I couldn't command the right side of my body to wrap my arm around her. I notified my husband at the time that I couldn't feel anything on the right side. And if you're familiar with medical emergencies, you know that if someone loses sensation on one side of the body, it indicates a stroke. So at this point, we send our children down to a neighbor's house, and he drives me to the hospital. On the drive to the hospital, I knew that I was going to lose all sensation on the left side of my body. And as I stated before, if you are familiar with medical emergencies, losing sensation on one side of the body indicates a stroke. Losing sensation on both sides of the body is confusing. I told my husband to tell them. And what I was trying to say is I wanted him to tell the children that I loved them, because I knew that something was going to happen. By the time we reached the hospital, I had no motor functions other than to moan and sob. And they wheeled me into the emergency room. Now you need to understand that on this day, it was Martin Luther King Jr. Day, so the staff was reduced. It's a holiday on a Monday, and typical specialty doctors were no longer there. They ran a CT and couldn't find the blood clot, but I was in a small town and they didn't have the equipment necessary to do more technical testing on me. So the choice had to be made that I could either stay and wait it out and hope that whatever was happening would stop happening, or they would put me in a medical helicopter and fly me to a larger hospital further away. It's important to note at this point that because I'm failing all motor tests, I cannot speak. I can blink, but I cannot move my head on command. I can't move my fingers or toes. I can't even press for a call button. I'm trapped in my body. I'm thinking and talking as quick as I'm talking to you now, but I couldn't speak. And at this point, my husband had started calling family members to let them know what was going on. And I could do nothing to express how I felt at that time. The decision was made to put me on a medical helicopter because there was a short window of time that they could give me a special medication if it was a clot. And when that window closes, you no longer have that option. So I was strapped onto a gurney and taken out to the helicopter, and I couldn't say goodbye to my husband. I couldn't tell him I love him. All I could do was look at him. Inside, I was screaming at the top of my lungs that I don't want this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to have this experience, and no one could comfort me but me. I'm terrified. In the helicopter ride on the way, I remember blacking out, and when I woke up, we had landed on the roof of the hospital that we were reaching. I was quickly wheeled into an elevator and brought down into the emergency room, and it is important to note at this point it's very busy because this is very peak COVID times, but I'm not having COVID symptoms. In the room, there were so many doctors that I don't think I saw white wall space as the helicopter pilot relayed the details of my collapse and my medical symptoms. It's also important to note two things. One, I had been dealing with long COVID for a good 10 months at this point. I had developed a tremor in my thumb, which moved to my hand, which moved to my arm, and I was working with a neurologist. I was being tested for Parkinson's, MS, and a host of other things. I had brain scans to determine if I had brain tumors or any other abnormalities in the brain that would indicate why I would have a tremor. I'm 34 at this time, and so it's not making a lot of sense. I was relatively healthy, but not in a way that would clarify why I was having all of these symptoms. I had developed neuropathy about 3 months prior to this, and neuropathy feels like when your foot falls asleep and there's pins and needles. It's like that, but it was all over my body every single day. So it was painful to get dressed, to eat, to hold a spoon, to make food, and I was a stay-at-home mom of 2 small children. So every day was really painful. I was working part-time online as a teacher to help children who were unable to go back into the classroom, and my stress level was relatively low, but with a lot of things to juggle, like many of you, I was doing my best. And after the helicopter pilot had continued to relay the information where he was missing pieces, but they couldn't hear me. I'm screaming in my head, you've gotten that wrong, or you need to say this, or don't forget that. But they couldn't hear me. I couldn't move. All I could do was blink and cry, basically. I tell a lot of this story in a chapter in a book that's coming out called Start Over, Turn Any Loss into a Sensational Comeback. And there is a story that comes just before this in this chapter of the book, and it will sort of kind of lead a little bit more into this near-death experience. But the reason I'm telling you is because I'm hoping that this will help someone out there who feels alone, who feels like they're misunderstood, who feels like their voice doesn't matter. I want people to understand how important your voice really is, and how we often silence ourselves in moments when we need to speak up, even if we're scared. And I hope that you have the courage to advocate for yourself and know that your voice carries power. And so it's important to use discernment when you use this voice and how you use this voice. But it is important regardless to use it. Because when you don't have the ability to speak, it's the one thing you need in that moment. It's devastating. Now, going back into this room, the doctors excuse the helicopter pilot so that he can go back to the hospital that I started in. There was maybe 10 to 15 doctors discussing what to do next. And they all left the room. And at this point, I black out. And in this blackout, I travel to a place. I don't know how to describe it other than what I would imagine if I was sitting on an asteroid staring out in the universe. That's how best I could describe this. And this light being showed up and said, I was waiting for you. And I just felt this immense sense of love and empowerment, and like I had come home and I was being hugged, like they were excited to see me. And in order for me to kind of understand what was going on, they took form in the shape of a man, because I asked, who are you? And he said, I'm God, or the voice to the energy. It was just a ball of energy. said that I am God, and in order for me to kind of understand what that meant, he took form in what we all understand to be God. And I felt this sadness come over him as he talked about what was going on in the world and how sad he felt that people were hurting one another, they weren't loving one another, that they weren't choosing him, and returning back to him to allow him to help. And I could feel it. I could feel this like sadness. It just felt like, you know, that sensation when people lose something or when their dog passes away. It's this overwhelming pain in your heart. That's what I felt. And I asked questions about that. And I asked, you know, why am I here? Why am I in this space? And he explained that I had a choice if I wanted to come back. And he explained what my purpose was here on earth and what I was meant to do. And he had been trying to tell me for a long time, and I just wasn't listening, and I wasn't doing what I was here to do. And it was clear that they needed to intervene as quick as possible. And so the way he described it to me and the way that he made me understand what we're here to do as people and to love one another, it was almost like a sense of pride that I would be given this choice to come back, that I would be honored to come back. And I said that I was ready. And when I came back into my body, I woke up, and again, my body is still unable to move. I can't press a call button. I can't talk, and no one is in the room with me. I just happened to catch the eye of someone walking by that was, I think, an ER nurse, and she could tell that I needed help. I needed to talk to somebody. So at this point, they have sent 2 people in to the room. I'm still trying to make sense of what had just happened to me, but I can't talk to anybody about it. And these 2 gentlemen came in and they explained that I was stressed and I was experiencing anxiety, and they were going to give me something to sleep. Not a single test had been run on my body. No one had taken me to special machinery. No one had given me the medicine that they told me they were giving me. Nothing had been done, and no one called my neurologist. Because where I was when I started this, my husband had to go collect our children, get into the car, and drive a few hours to get to the hospital where I was. And by the time that he had arrived, they wouldn't let him in because, again, this is peak COVID time, and they weren't letting visitors into the hospital. They were very strict about that. And he did his best to contact the ER department and to get a hold of the nurse. And they were unwilling to work with him or explain what was going on or to discuss treatment. So these 2 gentlemen gave me Benadryl and told me I needed to calm down and reduce stress in my life. And I fell asleep again. At this point, it was totally black during that sleep. I wasn't dreaming or anything like that. But when I woke up, they were taking my vital signs and telling me that they needed my bed. And I was placed in a wheelchair. And at this point, I still can't speak, but I was starting to get sensation back into my toes and my hands. And they had wheeled me out and into the car of my husband. Over the next few hours on the way back to our home, I started to get sensation back into my body, and over the course of a few more days, I was able to move and speak again. and sort of relay the experience without talking about my near-death experience because it had felt so intense. I wasn't sure if anyone was going to believe me. I was scared that I had died and had come back, and that there weren't really any answers as to why it had happened at all. I went to my neurologist, and he basically said that I would have to collapse again in order for them to do the correct test on my brain to know what was going on, and they would just have to wait and see. As a stay-at-home mom of two beautiful little girls, having the responsibility of them to catch mommy or to call 911 or to run to get a neighbor just felt like too heavy of a burden and responsibility to put on them. So at this point, I just started researching everything. I needed to advocate for myself because I realized while I was in that hospital bed, trapped in my body, that we are two very different things. We are our body and we are our soul. These are two things that work together to build the life that we are living. And oftentimes we can become very disconnected from our soul and our intuition and what we're here to do. And we focus just on meeting the physical needs. But there are many facets to a healthy life, not just a physical healthy body, but a mental healthy body, an emotional healthy body, and a spiritual healthy body. And I know that when people talk about God, it gets them uncomfortable because of organized religion. But I think we are at a time now where it's not about organized religion anymore. It is about individual relationships with God and whatever that looks like for you, and designing that relationship however you feel most comfortable, but being open to the idea that you can return to God again. He is here to help. He's here to love us, and he is here to guide us to work together. And I had this profound sense of duty or responsibility to share my story and walk my path as best that I could with the tools that I had at the time. And I just started asking questions of everybody around me. What would you do? How would you handle this? Do you know anyone? Like, I was just determined to find an answer to what happened to me before I collapsed again, so that it wasn't my children's job to protect their mother. About a week later, after the incident, I had met with a healer. I thought, why not? Why not give everything a try? And within 45 minutes, my neuropathy was gone, my tremor was gone, and my other long COVID symptoms were gone. At this point, I'm in shock because I had woken up every single day for 10 months in incredible pain and with so many symptoms. I just didn't know what my future was going to look like. That had me worried for my children, and for all of those to be gone, it was nothing short of a miracle. And I, at this point, became so crystal clear in my energy field that to say strange things started occurring is sort of an understatement. But I was able to tap into skills that I had known I always had. I just didn't know what to do with them. I was a premonition dreamer. I knew things would happen before they would happen. I had deja vu on a pretty regular basis throughout my life. But no one had really talked to me about spirituality or talked to me about energy or auric fields or anything like that. And no one had talked to me about psychics or mediums or channeling or anything. And this is sort of where my story and that part begins. And a lot of my skills came online sort of all at the same time. And that was overwhelming, but I was able to find a mentor to kind of help me. And now I can very honestly and proudly say that I have worked hard to become a channeler of information. I like to think of it as a lamp is the person, I am the cord, and the wall is God and the universe. And I am simply the conduit between the two. My job is simply to deliver information to people and give them hope and remind them of who they are and bring them back to themselves. That's my job. That is what I'm here to do. And I would love to continue to do this work, knowing it's my purpose. And oftentimes we can get caught up in the things going on in the world and lose sight of those 4 really important things: our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health. But I think if we can come back to ourselves and start fostering all of those areas of our lives, we can all connect better and more deeply with one another. And we don't have to be in such a state of suffering and pain. And so I tell this story, one, to inspire you and hope that you can understand that we really are here to work together and to love one another. Ultimately, that's what we're here to do. And to let you know that this book is coming out soon. There's other incredible stories of other people who have overcome really incredible challenges, and to also offer my services to you if you are interested in learning more about what's going on in your life, or maybe you're going through a hard time and you're dealing with a transition, or you feel like there's a choice to be made, you're just not sure what's the best choice. That's what I'm here to do. This is my purpose, and I feel honored to take part in this. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to share this story. It's not mine anymore. It's an old version of me. My life has changed dramatically since that time. I'm no longer married. I have moved, and I'm much healthier than I think I've ever been in my life. And I'm living a more well-rounded life, and I'm grateful for that. And I'm grateful for everyone who helped me along the way to get here. And I just want to express my gratitude for all of the new people entering my life and supporting me and supporting my channel. And if this interests you, or if my channeling is calling to you and resonating with you, I just ask that you hit subscribe and follow along and share your stories with me. And I'd love to connect with all of you, because I think it's time we start sharing our stories and being honest with one another. So thank you for watching, and I will talk to you all soon. Have a beautiful day.